There are some secrets that should never be uncovered. Some mysteries that are better left unsolved. And some loves that were never meant to exist between our world and the world beyond. This is a story from the ancient lands of Nigeria, passed down through generations, whispered in the quiet moments when the elders gather and the young ones lean in close. It is a story about a man who desired what he should never have touched, who loved what he could never truly keep, and who learned too late that not everything beautiful in this world belongs to this world. In the southeastern region of Nigeria, where the great rivers flow through thick forests and ancient villages dot the landscape like scattered memories, there was a young man named Chukwuemeka. His name meant God has done well, and indeed, the gods had blessed him with many gifts. He was handsome, with strong shoulders and a smile that could charm the sternest elder. He was intelligent, having attended university in the city before returning to his village with modern ideas and ambitious dreams. He was prosperous, running a successful trading business that took him between villages and towns, always returning with pockets fuller than when he left. But Chukwuemeka had one problem. He was unmarried. And in his village of Umus, a man of 30 years without a wife was a subject of concern, of gossip, of endless questions from mothers and grandmothers who saw in his bachelor status a personal affront to the natural order of things. His own mother, Mama Chokwu, had presented him with no fewer than 15 potential brides over the past 5 years. Each time, he found some reason to refuse. This one laughed too loudly. That one was too quiet. Another was too traditional. The next was not traditional enough. His mother had begun to suspect that perhaps her son's time in the city had given him unrealistic expectations about women. She had no idea how right she was, though not in the way she imagined. It was during the dry season, when the rivers ran low and clear, and the heat of the afternoon sun drove most people indoors to wait for evening's mercy. Chukwuemeka had been returning from a business trip to a neighboring village, taking a shortcut along the path that ran beside the Ulosi River. The river was sacred to the people of Umus, home to spirits and mysteries that the Christians tried to pray away and the traditionalists still honored with offerings and festivals. As he walked, wiping sweat from his brow and thinking about the cool bottle of beer waiting for him at home, he heard something that made him stop. Singing. A woman's voice, clear and pure as crystal, singing a melody he had never heard before. The language was Igbo, but the words were old, ancient, the kind his grandmother might have sung when the world was younger. He should have kept walking. The elders had always warned that strange singing by the river meant danger. But Chukwuemeka was a modern man, educated, rational. He did not believe in such superstitions. And the voice was so beautiful, so hauntingly beautiful, that his feet carried him toward it before his mind could object. Through the palm fronds and elephant grass, he pushed forward until he emerged onto a small beach of smooth stones where the river curved gently. And there she was. She sat on a large, flat rock at the water's edge, her feet dangling in the river. Her skin was the color of midnight kissed by moonlight, smooth and flawless as if she had been carved from onyx by a master sculptor. Her hair fell in thick, natural coils down her back, reaching past her waist, decorated with what looked like small shells and beads that caught the sunlight. She wore a simple wrapper of deep blue fabric that seemed to shimmer like water itself when she moved. But it was her face that captured him completely. She was beautiful beyond description, beyond comparison. High cheekbones, full lips, eyes that were large and expressive, framed by lashes that cast shadows on her cheeks when she blinked. When she turned and saw him standing there, mouth slightly open in wonder, she smiled. And that smile reached into his chest and claimed his heart before he could think to protect it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The river whispered its ancient secrets. A fish eagle called from somewhere upstream. The sun poured gold over everything. Finally, Chukwuemeka found his voice. Forgive me. I did not mean to intrude. I heard singing and... He trailed off, suddenly feeling foolish. And you followed it, she finished for him, her voice carrying that same musical quality he had heard in her song. Most people would have run away. The river and its songs frightened them. I am not most people, he said, with perhaps more confidence than he felt. She laughed, a sound like water over stones. No, I can see that. You are Chukwuemeka, are you not? The trader who went to the city and came back with big dreams. He was startled. You know me. But I have never seen you before. And I know everyone in your muse. Her smile became mysterious. I am new to your village. I came from far away. My name is Neka. Neka, he repeated, savoring the name. Mother is supreme. A common name, yet when she said it, it sounded like magic. Where do you stay? With which family? She gestured vaguely toward the forest beyond the river. I have a small place. I prefer solitude. The village is too crowded, too noisy for my taste. He should have asked more questions. Any reasonable person would have. A young woman, beautiful and alone, living somewhere in the forest with no family, no protection, no clear explanation of her origins. It made no sense. But when she looked at him with those deep, dark eyes, sense seemed like an unnecessary burden. They talked as the afternoon stretched into evening. She spoke of the river, of the forest, of the old ways and ancient stories. She knew things that even the eldest grandmothers seemed to have forgotten. She spoke of a time when humans and spirits lived closer together, when the boundary between the worlds was thin and easily crossed, when respect and ritual kept the peace between those who walked on land and those who dwelt in water. Chukwuemeka, for his part, spoke of his dreams. Of expanding his business, of bringing prosperity to Umuse, of building a modern life while honoring tradition. She listened with an intensity that made him feel like the most important person in the world. When the sun finally began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, she stood to leave. He reached for her hand without thinking. Will I see you again? She looked at his hand holding hers, and something flickered across her face, too quick for him to interpret. Yes, she said softly. You will see me again. Tomorrow, at this same time. I will be here. That night, Chukwuemeka could not sleep. He lay in his room, listening to the sounds of the village settling into night, and all he could see behind his closed eyes was her face, hear her voice, feel the cool smoothness of her hand in his. The next day, he could barely focus on his work. His apprentice had to call his name 3 times before he noticed. His mother asked if he was feeling ill. His friends joked that he looked like a man who had seen a spirit. If only they knew how close to the truth they were. True to her word, Neka was there the next afternoon. And the next. And the next. Every day for 2 weeks, Chukwuemeka would finish his work and hurry to the river, where she would be waiting. Sometimes she sat on her rock. Sometimes she stood in the shallows, the water swirling around her ankles in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. Sometimes she was walking along the bank, and he would join her, their hands eventually finding each other as naturally as the river found the sea. He was falling in love. Deeply, completely, irrevocably in love. But love, as the elders say, can make even a wise man foolish. The villagers began to notice. In a place like Umuse, where everyone knew everyone's business, secrets were hard to keep. Women at the market whispered as he passed. Men at the drinking spot exchanged knowing glances. His mother began to hear things, fragments of gossip that disturbed her. One evening, Mama Choku confronted her son. They say you have been meeting a woman by the river. Chukwuemeka looked up from his dinner, his heart suddenly beating faster. Yes, Mama. Her name is Neka. She is. Who is her family? His mother interrupted. Where does she come from? Why have I not heard of her people? She is new to the village. She lives in the forest, I have heard. Mama Choku's face was troubled. Choku, my son, this is not right. A woman living alone, appearing from nowhere, spending her days by the river. Do you not find this strange? Mama, you are being superstitious. She is just a woman who values her privacy. But his mother was not finished. I have spoken to Mama Ngozi, the oldest woman in our village. She has heard things from her grandmother about women who come from the river. Beautiful women who enchant men and lead them to destruction. Women who are not what they seem. Chukwuemeka felt anger rise in his chest. Mama, those are just stories. Old wives' tales meant to frighten children. This is the 21st century. We cannot live our lives based on ancient superstitions. Some superstitions exist because they are true, his mother said quietly. Promise me you will be careful. Promise me you will listen to wisdom. He promised, but the promise was empty. He had no intention of staying away from Nneka. The warnings increased. The village dibia, the traditional priest, came to see him. The man's face was grave, his eyes troubled. Chukwuemeka, I have consulted the oracle. There are forces at work around you. The spirits of the river are restless. You are treading on sacred ground, and you do not even know it. Chukwuemeka listened politely and ignored completely. His best friend, Obina, tried a different approach. Brother, even if she is just an ordinary woman, why all the secrecy? Why have you not brought her to meet your family properly? Why does she only appear by the river? Why has no one seen where she lives? These were reasonable questions. But Chukwuemeka had no reasonable answers, only the overwhelming certainty that Nneka was meant to be his, that their meeting was fate, that nothing else mattered. He decided he would marry her. When he told her, she became very still. For the first time since he met her, he saw something like fear cross her face. You cannot marry me, she said softly. Why not? Do you not feel what I feel? You do not understand what you are asking. Then explain it to me. He took her hands in his. I love you, Nneka. I want you as my wife. Whatever obstacles exist, we will overcome them together. She pulled her hands away, wrapping her arms around herself. There are some obstacles that cannot be overcome. There are laws older than your village, older than your language, older than the memory of mankind. I am bound by such laws. What laws? What are you talking about? She looked at him for a long moment, and in her eyes, he saw depths he could not fathom, sorrow he could not measure. If I tell you the truth, you will not believe me. And if you did believe me, you would run from me in terror. Is it not better to love me as I am, without questions? I need to know who you are. You know who I am, she said. I am Nneka. I am the woman who loves you, though I should not. I am the one who has broken rules that have stood for 10,000 years because I could not help myself. Is that not enough? It should have been enough. It should have been everything. But human nature demands answers, demands certainty, demands possession. Marry me, he insisted. Whatever you are hiding, whatever you fear, I will face it with you. I will protect you. She laughed, but it was a sad sound. You cannot protect me from what I am. But. She hesitated, then sighed, a sound like wind over water. If you truly wish to marry me, there are conditions. Rules that must be followed. Anything. First, the wedding must be small. Only your immediate family, a few witnesses, no more. Second, the wedding must take place during the day, before the sun sets. And third. She looked away. You must never try to follow me to the water. You must never ask me to swim with you. You must never question what I do when I am alone by the river. Can you accept these conditions? They were strange requests, certainly. But in his love-drunk state, they seemed like small prices to pay. Yes, he said. Yes, I accept. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they glistened with tears. Then we will marry. But know this, Chukwuemeka, when you know the truth, and you will know it eventually, do not say you were not warned. Do not say I deceived you. I tried to protect you from this knowledge. You chose to pursue it. He kissed her then, tasting salt from her tears, not understanding that those tears were not of joy but of grief for a future she could already see, a tragedy already written in the ancient books of fate. The wedding happened quickly, within 2 weeks. Mama Chukwu was unhappy with the haste, the small guest list, the strange conditions, but she loved her son and wanted him happy. She met Nneka once before the wedding. The meeting was brief, formal, uncomfortable. Afterward, she told her son, "There is something not right about that girl. I cannot place my finger on it, but something in her is different. Foreign. Other. She is just nervous, Mama." Meeting one's future mother-in-law is frightening. But his mother shook her head slowly. "It is not nervousness I sense. It is sorrow. She looks at you the way one looks at something beautiful that must soon be lost." The wedding took place on a Saturday morning in the small church at the edge of the village. The ceremony was simple, the guest list exactly as Nneka had required. She wore a traditional bridal attire that seemed to shimmer in the morning light, coral beads adorning her neck and wrist, her hair elaborately styled and decorated. She was so beautiful that even the doubting guests had to admit they had never seen a more stunning bride. But as the ceremony progressed, strange things happened. Small things that most people overlooked in the joy of the moment. When the priest poured holy water for the blessing, Nneka flinched, and her skin seemed to ripple where the water touched it. When they exchanged rings, her hands were cold, colder than hands should be on a warm day. And when the time came for her to say her vows, she hesitated so long that people began to shift uncomfortably, until finally she whispered, "I do," with a voice that sounded like someone sealing their own doom. The reception was brief. By noon, most guests had left, satisfied with the small celebration. By 2 o'clock, Chukwuemeka and his new bride were alone in the house he had prepared for them, a small but comfortable home on the outskirts of the village, close to the river. The afternoon stretched long and warm. They ate together, though Chukwuemeka noticed that Nneka barely touched her food, only drinking water, glass after glass of water, as if she could not get enough. She grew quieter as the day progressed, her earlier nervousness replaced by a kind of resigned melancholy. When evening came and the sun began its descent, she excused herself to the bedroom to prepare. Chukwuemeka waited in the living room, his heart pounding with anticipation on something else, something he did not want to name. Nervousness. Fear. Why would he be afraid? This was his wedding night, the beginning of his new life with the woman he loved. Half an hour passed. An hour. He called her name. No answer. He knocked on the bedroom door. Silence. Finally, he opened the door. The room was lit by a single kerosene lantern, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Nneka stood with her back to him, still wearing her bridal clothes, but something was wrong. The floor around her feet was wet, water pooling on the wooden boards, though there was no obvious source. Nneka. His voice sounded strange in his own ears. She turned slowly, and what he saw made his breath catch in his throat. Her eyes were no longer the warm brown he had fallen in love with. They glowed with an eerie blue-green light, the color of deep water where sunlight cannot reach. Her skin, which had always seemed to shimmer subtly, now appeared translucent in places, and beneath it, he could see what looked like scales, iridescent and impossible. What is happening?" he stammered, taking a step back. "The truth," she said, and her voice had changed too, carrying an echo, as if multiple voices spoke at once, as if the river itself was speaking through her. "The truth you demanded. The truth I tried to spare you." As he watched in horror and fascination, her form began to shift. The bridal clothes remained, but her body beneath them was transforming. Her legs became translucent, water-like, flowing and reforming. Her hair moved as if stirred by an underwater current, though the air in the room was still. The water on the floor began to swirl around her, defying gravity, rising in tendrils that wrapped around her like living things. "I am Neka," she said. "But I am also Miri, daughter of Idemalai, goddess of the Olosi River. I am not human, Chukwuemeka. I have never been human. I am a water spirit, bound to the river, born of it, returning to it, eternal and unchanging." He wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to flee from this impossibility, this nightmare. But his legs would not move. He was frozen, trapped between disbelief and the undeniable evidence of his eyes. "This cannot be real," he whispered. "This is not possible." "You said yourself that we must move beyond superstition," she said, and there was sadness in her ethereal voice. "But what you call superstition is simply truth that has been forgotten. The spirits of the river are real. The gods of your ancestors are real. And I am one of them." "Why?" The word burst from him. "Why did you do this? Why did you let me fall in love with you? Why did you agree to marry me when you knew this could never work?" Tears flowed down her face, but they were not ordinary tears. They glowed faintly, and when they hit the floor, they became tiny pools of luminescent water. "Because I fell in love with you too. Because in 10,000 years of existence, you are the first man who made me want to be human. Because I was selfish and foolish and I thought perhaps, somehow, we could make it work." She moved toward him, and though her form was now clearly inhuman, he could still see in her face the woman he loved. "I broke the laws of my people for you. I left the river during forbidden hours. I took human form beyond the permitted time. I married you in your human ceremony, binding myself to you in ways that violate every sacred rule. I did this because I loved you." Loved is seized on the past tense. "You do not love me anymore. I love you still. I will love you forever. But love is not always enough. There are consequences for what I have done. My mother, the goddess Idemalai, is angry. The river spirits are angry. I have upset the balance between our worlds. And now," she gestured at her transforming body, "I cannot maintain human form anymore. The magic is breaking. By dawn, I will have to return to the river completely. And once I return, I may never be able to take human form again." Chukwuemeka felt as if the ground was dissolving beneath his feet. "No. No, there must be a way. There must be something we can do." "There is one way," she said slowly. "One possibility. But it would require a sacrifice from you that I cannot ask. Tell me. Whatever it is, I will do it." She shook her head. "You say that now, but you do not understand. To be with me permanently, you would have to come with me. Into the river. Into my world. You would have to give up your human life, your human body, your human family. You would become like me, a spirit of the water, bound to the river for eternity. You would watch your mother age and die, unable to comfort her. You would watch your village change and your friends pass away. You would exist between worlds, belonging fully to neither." The weight of her words settled over him like a heavy blanket. He thought of his mother, who had already lost his father to illness 5 years ago. He thought of his friends, his business, his dreams for the future. He thought of children he might have, grandchildren, the simple human life he had always envisioned. And he thought of Neka, of her smile, of her voice, of the way she made him feel like the world was full of magic and possibility. "Is there no other option?" he asked desperately. "Can you not stay? Can you not find a way to remain human? I have already stretched the rules as far as they will go. If I do not return to the river by dawn, I will die. Not a human death, but something worse. I will fade, my essence scattered, never to reform. I will cease to exist in any form. That is the price for breaking sacred laws. They sat together on the floor of that bedroom, surrounded by water that should not be there, as the night deepened around them. Neko's transformation continued slowly, inexorably. She told him everything. She told him of the ancient kingdoms beneath the rivers, cities of crystal and flowing water where spirits dwelt in ageless beauty. She told him of the laws that governed her kind, rules designed to prevent exactly what had happened between them, love between mortal and immortal. She told him of others who had made the choice he now faced, humans who had given up their earthly lives to follow their spirit lovers into the water realm. Some are happy, she said. They adapt to their new existence and find peace in eternity. But others spend centuries in regret, mourning the lives they left behind, the children they never had, the sun they can only see filtered through water, the earth they can no longer walk upon. What would you have me do? He asked. I cannot make this choice for you. It must be yours alone. But know this, I will love you regardless of your decision. If you choose to stay in your human world, I will return to the river and carry your memory with me through the ages. You will have lived the longest life in my existence, the one life that mattered. That is something. And if I come with you, then we will be together. Forever is a long time, Chukwuemeka. It is not always the blessing it seems to be. As dawn approached, he still had not decided. Neko's form had become almost entirely translucent. She looked like a woman made of water, held together only by will and the last remnants of the magic that had allowed her to take human shape. It is time, she said as the first birds began their morning songs. I must return to the river. Will you come with me? He stood, his mind churning. He loved her. He loved her more than he had ever thought possible to love anyone. But could he leave behind everything he knew? Could he abandon his mother, who had already lost so much? Could he give up his humanity for love? He began, but the words would not come. She smiled sadly and reached up to touch his face one last time. Her hand felt like cool water against his skin. I understand. You are human, with human ties and human obligations. It is not a weakness to honor those connections. It is what makes you beautiful. I do love you, he said desperately. I know. And that is enough. It has to be enough. She kissed him, a kiss that tasted of river water and tears and ancient sorrow. Then she turned and walked toward the door. With each step, she became less solid, more water than woman. By the time she reached the threshold, she was barely visible, a shimmer in the air, a ripple of possibility. Wait, he called out. She paused, hope flickering in her luminous eyes. I cannot come with you, he said, and watch that hope die. But I need you to know that I will never forget you. I will never love another woman. You have ruined me for the ordinary world. That is both a blessing and a curse, she said. Farewell, my love. May your human life be full of all the joys I could never give you. And then she was gone, flowing out the door like water seeking its level, leaving behind only wet footprints that evaporated in the morning light. Chukwuemeka stood alone in his bedroom, surrounded by the remnants of his wedding night, feeling as if his heart had been carved from his chest. The sun rose, indifferent to his pain. The village began to wake, unaware that the impossible had just occurred in their midst. His mother found him there an hour later, sitting on the floor, staring at nothing. Where is your wife? She asked. Gone, he said simply. Gone where? Back to where she came from. Back to the river. Mama Chukwu looked at her son's face and saw something there that frightened her. She had seen grief before, had worn it herself when her husband died. But this was different. This was the look of a man who had glimpsed something beyond the ordinary world and could never be ordinary again. In the days that followed, Chukwuemeka went through the motions of living. He returned to his business, smiled when expected, spoke when spoken to. But everyone could see that something fundamental had changed in him. He was present but absent, alive but not living. The village elders came to understand, through whispers and fragments of truth, what had happened. The Dibia performed rituals at the riverbank, making offerings to appease the water spirits, asking forgiveness for the disruption in the natural order. The Christians held prayer sessions, asking their God to protect the village from spiritual interference. Chukwuemeka visited the river every day. He would sit on the rock where he had first seen Nneka and watch the water flow past. Sometimes, in the late afternoon when the light hit the water just right, he thought he saw her face looking up at him from the depths. Sometimes he heard singing that might have been her voice or might have been only the wind through the reeds. His mother tried to find him another wife. He refused gently but firmly. How could he marry an ordinary woman after having loved the goddess? How could he settle for the mundane after having touched the divine? Years passed. Chukwuemeka grew older, his hair beginning to gray at the temples, his face gaining the lines of a man who carried a great secret. He became known in the village as a kind man, generous and wise, but solitary. Children said he was cursed. Elders said he was blessed with knowledge that came at too high a price. One evening, 20 years after his wedding night, Chukwuemeka sat by the river as usual. He was 50 now, no longer the young man who had been so confident in his ability to shape his own destiny. His mother had passed the year before, and he had wept at her funeral, not just for her loss but for the choice he had made that prevented him from giving her grandchildren, from giving her the normal life she had wanted for him. As the sun set, the water before him began to glow with that familiar blue-green light. And Nneka rose from the river. She looked exactly as she had on their wedding night, unchanged by the decades that had marked him. But her eyes were ancient, carrying the weight of time he could never fully understand. "You came back," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "I never left," she replied. "I have been here, in these waters, every day. Watching you grow older. Watching you carry the burden of our love. I should have gone with you," he said. "I realize that now. I should have chosen love over duty." She shook her head slowly, water droplets falling from her hair like diamonds. "No, my love. You chose correctly. You were human, with human obligations. Your mother needed you. Your village needed you. You have lived a good life, helped many people, brought wisdom born of sorrow to those who sought your counsel. If you had come with me, you would have spent 20 years in regret, trapped in a world not your own. But I have spent 20 years in regret anyway," he said. "Trapped in a world that feels hollow without you. Regret is the price of any choice," she said gently. "There is no path in life that does not carry loss. You lost me, yes. But you kept your humanity. You kept your connection to the world you were born into." "Why did you come back now?" he asked. "Because you are at a crossroads again. You are older now, wiser. Your obligations to the human world are fewer. Your mother has passed. You have no children to care for. And I want to offer you the choice again. Come with me now, Chukwuemeka. Come into the water. Become what I am. We can be together for the rest of time." He looked at her, this impossible woman who had shaped his entire life, and felt the weight of the decision settling over him again. But this time, something was different. This time, he was not a young man drunk on new love. He was a man who understood the cost of choices, the weight of sacrifice, the truth that every path leads away from other paths that might have been. "Will I still be me?" he asked. "If I come with you, if I transform, will I still remember my mother, my village, the life I lived?" "You will remember everything. That is both the gift and the curse. You will carry your human memories into eternity." He stood slowly, his joints protesting in ways they had not when he was 30. He walked to the edge of the water. Nneka extended her hand to him, just as she had so many years ago. "If I do this," he said, "I do it with full understanding. I do it knowing what I am leaving behind and what I am gaining. I do it not in the fever of new love, but in the calm acceptance of a man who has lived and learned. That is all I ask, she said. That you choose with wisdom rather than passion. He took her hand. It was cool and smooth, inhuman yet familiar. Then yes, he said. Yes, I will come with you. Let me leave this world as I entered it, with water surrounding me, washing me clean, preparing me for a new existence. She pulled him gently into the river. The water was warm, welcoming. As it closed over his head, he felt his body beginning to change, his human form dissolving, transforming. There was no pain, only a sense of release, of boundaries dissolving, of becoming something more and less than he had been. The villagers found his clothes on the riverbank the next morning. They searched for days but never found his body. Eventually, they held a funeral with an empty coffin, mourning the loss of the man who had been both blessed and cursed by the love of a river goddess. But sometimes, on quiet evenings when the light is soft and the river runs smooth as glass, people say they see two figures in the water. A man and a woman, holding hands, their forms made of water and light, eternal and unchanging. And those who see them say they look peaceful, content in a way that only comes from finally accepting who you are and what you were meant to be. The elders tell this story to teach many lessons. They say it teaches us that some love is too powerful for the ordinary world to contain. They say it teaches us that choices made in passion often lead to sorrow, while choices made in wisdom lead to peace. They say it teaches us that the world is stranger and more magical than modern thinking allows, that the old gods and spirits still exist, still touch our lives in ways we do not expect. But perhaps the deepest lesson is this, that we must respect boundaries between worlds, between what is human and what is divine, between what we desire and what we are meant to have. Love is powerful, yes. Love can transform us, yes. But love without wisdom can destroy us, while love with wisdom can elevate us to heights we never imagined possible. Chukwuemeka made his choice twice. Once as a young man who chose duty over desire. And once as an older man who chose love over fear. Both choices were right for their time. And in the end, he found peace not by denying either the human or the divine, but by accepting that he could bridge both worlds, that he could honor both his humanity and his love for the immortal. The river still flows through Muse. The village still thrives. And somewhere in those waters, in the depths where sunlight filters down in shafts of gold, where the currents carry ancient secrets, Chukwuemeka and Neko remain together, proof that some love stories do not end, they simply transform, becoming legends that teach generation after generation about the power of choice, the weight of wisdom, and the eternal nature of true love. This story has been passed down through families for generations. It is whispered by grandmothers to grandchildren. It is debated by young men and women who wonder if they would have the courage to choose love over everything else, or the wisdom to choose duty when necessary. It is a story that lives in the waters of Nigeria, in the memories of the Igbo people, in the hearts of all who have ever loved something impossible and had to decide what price they were willing to pay. Remember this tale when you stand at your own crossroads. Remember that every choice carries a price, but also a gift. Remember that wisdom often looks like sacrifice, but sacrifice made with wisdom becomes transformation. And remember that love, true love, never really ends. It simply changes form, flowing like water from one state to another, eternal as the rivers that gave birth to this story, powerful as the gods who watch over those waters still. Let this story remind you to honor the old wisdom, to respect the boundaries between worlds, to choose with your head as well as your heart, and to understand that sometimes the greatest love is not the one that possesses, but the one that transforms us into who we were always meant to become. May you choose wisely when your moment comes. May you love deeply when love finds you. And may you always remember that in this world and the next, in the realm of flesh and the realm of spirit, some truths remain constant. Love is powerful, choices matter, and wisdom earned through sorrow is the deepest wisdom of all. This is the story of the man who married a river goddess. This is the lesson of those who love across boundaries they should not cross. This is the wisdom of the elders, preserved in story, waiting for those brave enough to listen and wise enough to learn. If this story has touched you, if it has made you think about the choices you face, the loves you pursue, the boundaries you respect or cross, then share it. Let others hear this ancient wisdom. Let the lesson spread like water flowing from its source, touching all who need its message. Subscribe to hear more stories from the deep well of African wisdom. Like this video if you believe these old tales still have something to teach us. Comment below with your thoughts. What choice would you have made? Would you have gone with Neka the first time? The second? Or would you have walked away from the river entirely? The ancestors are still speaking. The river still holds its secrets. And somewhere in the waters of Nigeria, love still transforms those brave enough to dive beneath the surface. Until the next story finds us, remember, the old gods are watching, the spirits are listening, and every choice you make echoes into eternity.